Great cue, Molly. We're going to go ahead and welcome everybody to the Linn County League of Women Voters, first forum of the 2022 legislative session. I'm Ashley Van Orney of the League of Women Voters of Linn County, and I'll be moderating today's forum. The Nonpartisan League of Women Voters of Linn County conducts these forums as part of its voter education program. The League of Women Voters encourages citizen participation in government. I want to thank all of the legislators for their time and attendance today. All legislators were invited, and today I know we have a few people still joining, but today in attendance, we've got Senator Rob Hogue, Senator Todd Taylor, and we have Representatives Art Stade, Representative Molly Donohue, Representative Liz Bennett, Representative Tracy Ellert, and Representative Eric Jarity, and Representative Charlie Mcclintock. So thank you and welcome. Because of the high COVID community transmissions rates, we did decide the league pivoted to a live stream of this forum rather than the in-person forum that was originally planned. We are grateful to Pro Video for their services in both live streaming the forum via YouTube and recording the forum. The recorded forum will be available for viewing later on the Linn County League of Women Voters website. We hope the March forums will be in person, but time and COVID rates will tell. We will start today with each legislator introducing themselves and sharing topics that are important to them this legislative session for a minute and a half. Our timer will show when the speaker has 30 seconds left and then 15 seconds and then stop. A league panel reviewed questions submitted to the Linn County League of Women Voters website for legibility, clarity, and applicability to all legislators. I will read as many questions as time allows, sometimes combining similar questions, striving to cover a variety of topics. Pro Video will also give us a 10-minute warning, so we know when we have the final question. So today, the order that we have, and I know we've got some people joining, so give me just a second here to finish this. Got Todd and Eric. Okay, and see Representative Kirsten Marquardt is also joining us. So today we're going to go ahead in this order. We've got State Representative Molly Donohue, then State Senator Rob Hogue, State Representative Art Stade, State Representative Tracy Ellert, State Representative Charlie Mcclintock, State Representative Liz Bennett, State Senator Todd Taylor, State Representative Eric Jarity, and State Representative Kirsten Marquardt. So Molly, if you would begin with a 90-second opening. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the first one that we could actually meet, at least over Zoom. I am Molly Donohue. I am representing Marion and Bertram, Ely, and parts of Cedar Rapids. For those who don't know, we've got a lot of things happening at the Capitol on both sides of the House, or the House and the Senate. Just some real quick talking points are basically that, the Democrats are working so that every kid deserves, because every kid deserves shelter, food, and to be treated with dignity and respect. We want to make sure teachers know that you are not our enemies, and that working families and not corporations and millionaires deserve those tax breaks that the tax bills are passing right now. We want to make sure that people know that we believe that public money is for public schools. And we have so many issues that need to be worked on, and some of the bills that are coming through just seem very hateful, if you will. We have, housing issues in this state. We have workforce crisis in this state. There are so many other things that we should be working on, and I just hope that we can get to some of those better bills here soon. But we do have the trans bill coming out this week, which is unfortunate. Just another way to pick on kids at school, and would like to fight that and try to make sure that we're doing better by our people of Iowa. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Rob Hogue, representing people in Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest Cedar Rapids. It's great to be with you and great to be with the League of Women Voters this morning. The two things I will mention, I think Molly did a good start to the overview there, so thank you for that. The two things I just really want to highlight, we do have a workforce problem in Iowa, and it's not going to be fixed without investing some money in it. There are actually fewer Iowans working today than when Governor Reynolds took office. It is worse in Iowa than it is in other states. Our workforce has been stagnant over the last decade, whereas nationally the workforce has grown by over 10 million people. So it really is a problem that is affecting Iowa more so than other places, and we need to address that. The other thing I would mention is there are some bills that are trying to take away the freedom of farmers to use their land for conservation and environmental purposes. In the Iowa Senate, I was on a subcommittee for Senate Study Bill 3134, that's now Senate File 2312, that would limit the ability of farmers to sell their land for conservation purposes by forcing them to sell for below market value. And there's also an anti-solar bill, Senate File 2321, that I hope we get a chance to talk about more later on the program. Thank you.
I'm Representative Art State from Cedar Rapids, the northeast side, and I'm serving on the Education Committee, the Education Budget Subcommittee, Local Government, Economic Growth, Environmental Protection, and Ways and Means. So I had a myriad of bills I've been working on. My key efforts, I think, would be for public education, making our schools stronger and making sure that they get the support and teachers get the resources that they need. The fair taxes for everyone, not just the wealthy, and our workforce issues, particularly getting the shortage of teacher problem solved, our healthcare problems, lots of other shortages in the workforce. Thank you.
I think I'm next. If I go out of order, sorry. Charlie Mcclintock, District 95. I serve on agriculture, veterans affairs, natural resources, and justice systems as my sub. It's going well, I think, this year. A little slow start, but we're picking up, and you'll see a lot more done next week. Overall, for Iowa, we're doing well with the taxes. We'll see. I think that bill went well. We'll continue to do more with taxes. You'll see more bills as we progress through the session. I was happy to see some of the bills that we got through for veterans affairs. We can talk about more of those later on in the session if we have time here, or the program. We're doing some good stuff for teachers. There's some law enforcement stuff that we're doing, as well as stuff for the veterans. So again, I don't want to take up too much time, but we should have some more good bills coming up throughout the session. So thank you. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting. Always appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks to League of Women Voters for hosting, and thanks to everyone out there that's listening. I'm Tracy Ellert, State Representative, Iowa House District 70, which is part of the west side of Cedar Rapids. I also have Covington and a tiny piece of Palo. My committees are pretty much the same this year: education, human resources, labor. I'm back on education appropriations, where I'm the ranking member, and then on regular appropriations committee also. My big focus, as I'm sure is not a big surprise, is early ed, especially childcare. There's been 3 bills that have passed through committee on childcare this year that are not great. I'm working behind the scenes to try to improve those. So that's where a lot of my efforts have been. And then as Art can testify, we've been spending a lot of time on education committee, trying to get some things done there as well.
Okay. Hey folks, I'm State Representative Liz Bennett. I'm from House District 65 in Cedar Rapids. I currently represent the majority of the southeast side of Cedar Rapids, as well as Newbo, Czech Village, and Co College. So it's been a pleasure to do that. I serve on the Economic Growth Committee, Natural Resources Committee, Human Resources, IT Infrastructure Committee, which is a fun one and probably our most bipartisan committee, as well as the Transportation and Infrastructure Budget Subcommittee. It's been a wild couple weeks in the State House. A few of us got COVID at the State House, and so I certainly did. doing a lot better, but just a reminder to everybody to keep trying to take those precautions as you can, because it's no fun. My focus so far this year in the State House, as always, has been making sure that our kids get a quality education in the state of Iowa. As Representative Donohue said, we believe that all kids in the state of Iowa should have a roof over their head, meals to eat, and a quality education. And that's something that we have been fighting very hard for. We saw the governor open up with a regressive tax plan that would take more money out of the pockets of people who really need it and put more money into the pockets of people who already have quite a lot. So I think that's the wrong direction for the state. Democrats this week, when we debated the tax plan, tried to propose things such as expanding the child care dependent tax credit, something that would directly help people in Iowa get back into the workforce.
I apologize. That's our time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, folks.
So
Hello,
it looks like we've got State Senator Todd Taylor.
Hi there, State Senator Todd Taylor. I just want to start with saying I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say, when we say thank you to the League of Women Voters, it's not just a passing thank you. We really mean it, because there's no other forums that are just like this one. So you are unique and you're very valuable. So it's a sincere thank you from all of us. I serve in a leadership role in the justice system budget process, if you will, in the Senate. And unfortunately, the way the leaders have called the shots, we don't have any press in the Senate, and we don't have any joint meetings with the House in this committee. Fortunately, I have a lot of experience in that committee, so you figure out ways to learn what you have to do. We do have a workforce problem. It's in our public safety system as well. Our corrections officers, our nurses, our police officers, criminalists, et cetera. We need to provide more for them. We need to higher incentives. It'd be nice to have collective bargaining back. And we also need some counseling and some therapy services for all the first responders, et cetera. Lastly, we deal with some bills that are like really insignificant, like, shall we take the county name off the license plates? And then we also deal with, let's say, ethanol. Iowa produces food for the world. We grow a lot of corn. We sell it in Cedar Rapids. We produce it into energy and so on. And I'm fortunate to be on that bill. So there are a myriad of issues going around the so-called ethanol mandate. So I'll be digging in deeper on that in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you. And State Representative Eric Jardy.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And again, thank you very much to League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I am State Representative Eric Jardy and currently represent House District 67, which is portions of Northeast Cedar Rapids, West Marion, Hiawatha, and Robbins. This session, I serve on state government, education, agriculture, ways and means, and veterans affairs. I think my colleagues did a really good job of really talking about what's been going on. And my focuses right now are to ensure that the Iowa legislature is focused on lowering taxes for our hardworking Iowans and focusing on our middle-class workers that really need it the most. Ensuring that our schools are a safe place, but also an academic supported institution for both our students and our educators. Mental health care is a concern that we seem to be talking about every single year that doesn't seem to get addressed enough. And lastly, local control. It seems that in the state legislature, we're consistently taking away local control, whether it's from a board of supervisors, from a city council, from a education board of directors. That has to stop, and I'd be happy to talk about that more later.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Great. Good morning, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, all the volunteers who for decades have worked really hard to make government accessible to people. Thank you for your time. I'm Kirsten Marquardt. I am a state representative from the west side of Cedar Rapids. The committees I serve on also sort of a roadmap to the priorities that I've had I'm the Democratic leader on the economic development budget. I serve on appropriations and also economic growth and labor. Like many people said, this year we're in a funnel week. It's been very busy for all of us with lots of bills. One thing that I am a little bit disappointed on trying to work with legislators across the aisle on, we have a couple bills that are really not only attacking, but are not good for the Iowa worker. And when we have such a large amount, 60 to 70,000 people in the state who have not come back into the workforce, we need to have big, bold ideas and in addressing those. And so we've had some, we need to make sure we're investing in our schools so people stay here. And we need to make sure that we are giving people a fair shake in the tax breaks as well. It doesn't just all go to the wealthy or big corporations. I also had a big week. I announced I'm running for county supervisor for Linn County. So I get to work on, if elected, I get to work on local issues, more local issues, and look forward to that and look forward to this forum today. Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to our first question here, starting with State Senator Rob Hogue. The question were submitted in advance and were vetted ahead of time. The question reads, if you create the problem, you are responsible for solving it. I know Hy-Vee and Casey's don't want to handle used plastic bottles and aluminum cans, but they are sure willing to make money selling customers liquids in those containers. Under no circumstances would I want any taxpayer money spent to solve a problem that retailers created. What are we going to do? And again, we'll start with State Senator Rob Hogue.
Well, thank you for that question. I am a supporter of the bottle bill. I was actually, a fairly young kid when Governor Ray started it in the late 1970s, and it was something that inspired me. Partly it helped inspire me to a lifetime of concern about the environment, our natural world, and conservation of resources. So I would hate to see us get rid of the bottle bill. Factually, by the way, there are going to be other people on this program who have been working more on this issue more directly than me. So I will look forward to their comments. But, I will say it is critical to maintain the bottle deposit if you want a higher rates of return. And of course, it's been a nickel. It's been a nickel since the late 1970s. I personally would support increasing it to a dime. I think that would help us maintain higher rates. But what doesn't work is to say we're going to get rid of that program, because if you do that, you would have an immediate increase in the amount of recyclable cans and bottles that were not being returned. As good as a curbside program is, it cannot match the return rates of the bottle bill. So we need to support the bottle bill. I hope we can improve it. I certainly hope we don't get rid of it. Thank you.
I'd like to comment on that. This is Representative Art State. We did have a bill that just squeaked by in the last hours before funnel this week. It's going to keep the bottle bill discussions alive. And it's apparent that it is open for comparison. We know that the grocers and the distributors and the others are working together to try to get something. We haven't had complete cooperation yet, but the bottle bill is very popular among Iowans, and it's one of the models for the nation. It has worked and kept tons and tons of bottles and cans out of our streams and away from our highways. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get something in the next few weeks to expand the bottle bill, make it even better than it has been. And I'm very hopeful.
The bottle bill isn't a bill that I've had to work on personally, but I do have constituents every so often. There's usually about 5 emails I receive each year on the bottle bill. And most of them don't really say whether they are for or against it. They just agree that there needs to be some updates to it or some improvements, or get rid of it if we're not going to do that. And I agree, it could definitely be modernized a bit. But one thing I want to point out where I've really seen the deposit work is, especially these past few years since COVID, is our nonprofits are using those returns. They're doing can drives, or people are even doing them themselves and taking the money to nonprofits that have been hit so hard during COVID. And even in years prior to COVID, I remember in my childcare program, we did a community outreach project every year, and collecting cans was one of them that we do each year because different organizations around town would always have a can drive. So just thinking, some people are like, maybe I don't recycle them myself, or, the stores don't want to deal with them, but just thinking about some of our other resources out there that do rely on those deposits. Thank you.
I would just chime in and say that, kind of on what the questioner said, Hy-Vee in particular, it got out of the requirement for accepting cans and bottles during the pandemic. And maybe there was a healthcare issue with that, but they're continuing to not do that. And if we allow them to not do it, I think it should be through legislation. But I support the bottle bill, but we ultimately need to support recycling. And I think, as Senator Hogue said, recycling is the curbside is good, but this is better, bottle bill. But the issue is about with the rural legislature or rural legislators. I think they're chiming in on it, speaking louder, because they don't have the access that we might with Can Shed or whatever. But if we allow the grocers out of it, it should be by rule, not by fiat through the governor, in my opinion.
Thank you, State Senator Todd Taylor. We're going to go ahead and move on to State Representative Charlie Mcclintock now.
Thank you. My short answer is I would agree with everything Artstead said, especially about it does have an impact on keeping our rivers, streams, our roadways clean. So, but the bottom bill kind of first came up for me. This is my first session, second year. So last year, where I kind of looked into it and started asking my district and constituents about it at different events. And I found that there is a spectrum of people that go out, pick them up, are diligent about it, but the vast majority of people were recycling them. So in other words, they buy their 12-pack, they come home and they drink it, and then they go and they throw it in a separate container for their trash pickup. And so one is recycle, one is their trash. This seemed to be the majority of the people that what they were doing with their bottles or their cans. And that's fine, but I've seen it happen more than once with our people that pick up our trash, where they've said, I'll be quick, where they've said, we're not going to be able to do that now. Now just put everything together and throw it away. And that's my concern, is that when recycling is not high enough for them to be able to do that, the costs are not, all this stuff just gets dumped and thrown away, and then it's not being handled properly. So this is my concern with it. It does need to be addressed. I do support the bill. Thank you.
I also would support some modernization of the bottle bill. I think the most important thing is finding something that works. We don't want to become a state where we are just routinely seeing trash along the highway, in our streams, our rivers, etc. We know how important our water quality is. We know how important it is to keep our environment clean here in Iowa, not just because we're good stewards, but also because we know how important our natural resources are to our state and our economic growth. So I think there are a range of solutions, whether it's increasing the deposit, whether it's moving to a different type of program, but I would give some appreciation to the person who asked the question, and that I don't think we want to see taxpayers footing the bill for this. I think society works when we all pay our fair share. And so I do think that does involve some responsibility on the part of folks who are making money and who are selling these bottled beverages. Thanks.
State Senator Todd Taylor, did you want to consider that as your turn, or was that a comment?
I apologize, because I didn't realize I'm supposed to do my answers in the same order.
That's okay. If you have another comment, you're welcome to proceed now.
That was it. Thanks. I'll follow
Okay.
the order now.
That's okay. Thank you. So we will move on to State Representative Eric Jardy now. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And so one of the reasons I was late getting on today is my internet connection wasn't great at home, so I came to the library, and I'm not quite sure it's any better here. It seems to still say it's unstable. So I see a 30-second sign in the window, but I just started, so I'm going to keep it really simple to say I would support increasing the bottle bill. I think that we need to keep it. I would rather do nothing than get rid of it. I'm not sure if anybody heard anything I just said, so I'm going to step away and see if I can figure this out.
Great. Next is State Representative Kirsten Marquardt.
Hi, we should let Representative Jardy know we heard him. I'm all for modernizing the bottle bill and moving that forward. It's sort of a bill that we've seen year after year. And, I look forward to kind of getting all the parties together and getting a final resolution sometime soon. We absolutely need modernization in the bottle bill, but we also need to take account all of the group's concerns and needs moving forward. And I yield the rest of my time to another answer. Thank you.
I am actually someone who has been working on this. This is my 4th year at the Capitol working on this bill. And it's gone through state government multiple times, and there have been breakdowns, mostly with the grocers. We do have, if you noticed on the news last night, Representative Eisenhart put our new bill out there for the public to see that we are trying to pass to modernize it. And ultimately what it comes down to is making sure that we get more money to the redemption centers so that they can afford to grow and continue doing what they're doing. It would take it out of the hands of the grocers, but we're asking the grocers to allow these redemption centers to have mobile trucks to come to their parking lot on certain days of the week and collect, so people can still go to their grocery store so they don't have to drive 5-10 miles away. But there are also those provisions so that if you live out in the rural areas, there would have to be a redemption center within 10 miles. If you're in the more rural areas, then we have 5-mile restrictions for the redemption centers. So that's what we're working on right now. It was, like I said, it was just in the news last night. There are quite a few of us on that bill. That would be myself, Representative Eisenhart, Representative Bohannon, Myers, Representative Stade, Anderson, Winkler, McConkey, Abdul Samad, and Kurt. So there are a bunch of us working on it. We're going to try to get this through this year.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move into our second question, and it reads as follows. What are we doing to make mental health care available to our homeless residents? Do you think that this has any correlation to our crime rate? And we're going to begin with State Representative Art Stade.
So I haven't been up to snuff on this particular bill and any of the committees that I'm in on the mental health issues. But we certainly hope that the local centers that we have now would be one of the accessible points for the homeless. And we would be looking forward to the cities and counties to making sure that people get access to it and they reach the homeless. And that's something that needs to be done rather than the bill itself. In addition to that, the legislature has to make sure that there's funding for mental health. We haven't done that yet. The governor has talked about that in the past. We have a robust mental health system. We have removed the authority to tax for the mental health from the local regional areas and counties, put that in the hands of state. The state has promised to fully fund it. We'll wait and see whether that happens.
I think I'm next. Okay. I wrote this down to take back with me on Monday. I have not myself seen a particular piece of legislation for mental health around the homeless. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just I haven't seen it come through. So I cannot comment on what's being done at the state level, but I do know locally, at least here in Linn County, amongst our different organizations that we have. We do have individuals, that go out and directly reach out to our homeless to see the various services that they need, whether that be mental health, or, some sort of other healthcare, dental care, housing. So we do have outreach going on, but I know that doesn't happen in every area. So this is really important to bring up. And if I have any time yet left, I'll yield it if anyone else does know about any legislation going on this.
I would echo that. For my committees and for what I see come through on the calendar, I haven't seen anything specifically about mental health with the homeless, but I totally agree. This is an issue that is not going to go away. It's something that you can't ignore. And if you try to ignore it, then it's going to end up in your jails, your prisons. It's going to end up in your hospitals. It's going to end up with issues on the street. It's going to end up in your shelters. It's something you can't ignore. I don't know what the like Art mentioned, I don't know the latency effect of what it's going to be with the state taking it over. We're hoping for good things and improvements. Obviously, every one of us need to be diligent about funding, but it absolutely can't be ignored. And we're going to have to continue to do everything we can to deal with mental health. And that's also with the school systems. Every aspect of it we need to do. And it's not like we're not doing anything. There is legislation that we've done to improve the process and with mental health and the assisting with employment and things like that for people that have had issues with work. I can't think of the program right off the top of my head. I know my time is short here. So anyway, we are doing what we can. Thank you.
Well, I think when we're talking about mental health and unhoused people, there's a really well-documented link between mental illness and folks who are struggling with homelessness. So when we look at legislation, whether it's at the state level, the federal level, or even what can be done at the county level, there's been a lot of focus now with research on getting people housed first and foremost. When you don't have a home, your physical health, you're going to face barriers to your physical health. You're going to face barriers to stability, to getting the mental health treatment that's even available. So what I would hope is that as we look at this social problem and ask ourselves who we are as a society, that we allow people who are struggling to sleep on the streets, that we look at the research that's available and start to look at housing first solutions for folks who are unhoused and struggling with homelessness.
I would add that, while we may have a good system for people that have, a heart attack or a broken ankle, the quick cares in the hospitals, doctors, et cetera, we do not have a really well functioning system for people that have mental health issues, not well enough. And to the part of the question that dealt with our justice systems, our sheriffs are telling us that a lot of times because of the lack of a system to help mental health and folks also that are homeless, they're filling up our county jails, and our jails should be reserved for folks that for other reasons, I think, than mental health issues. So that's the thing that we have to deal with. We have a paradigm out there. It's our regular healthcare system. This needs to be part of regular healthcare system, and we need more staff, and we need to just all agree on it, because we're kind of all not agreeing on it. And this problem is not being addressed.
Thank you, State Senator Todd Taylor. Next, then, I know we had State Representative Eric Jardy join us by phone. So Eric, it is your turn now.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, I'm not sure what the issue was. It sounds like you could hear and see me fine, but I could hear or see very little. So we'll give this a shot. I think mental health, there's a mental health crisis going on, and I think that's undeniable. There's certainly more that we need to do. I know that, at the local level, the Linn County Access Center is having a direct impact. I do think that mental health and how we seem to be addressing it right now is too often through our correctional system, and our jail and prisons are often the first place that folks go to get that need mental health treatment, and that's not adequate. We need to get more mental health counselors and professionals in our state. We need mental health counseling in our schools, and so there's just a lot that we need to work on, and essentially acknowledge that it is a crisis.
Okay, so our next person up is State Representative Kirsten Marquardt. Oh, State Representative Kirsten Marquardt, it looks like you're muted.
Thank you. I wonder if we'll get to a time post-pandemic when we won't be on Zooms. You don't have to tell people that are muted. No, this question is, takes more than 90 seconds to answer, I guess. Our local access center is critical in providing mental health services. The state of Iowa needs to make sure that it's putting in its fair share, though. The state, we keep making new programs, new parameters for mental health services, but then we don't fund them. And so I don't think that's fair to the locals. And I don't think that that's really authentic to the state, because they say they're doing something sometimes and then the funding doesn't come through. The part about folks who are, is there any correlation to crime rate? I don't know if it'd be so much the crime rate, but people have a difficult time finding stable housing when they have a record. And so it's really important that we get the information out for people who can expunge their record. And then also working with landlords and folks about giving people a second chance for housing as well. That's a whole community conversation as well. But I absolutely support mental health funding, making sure the state puts in its fair share at the state level so the localities can do what they need to do delivering the services. But we also, like the Iowa Finance Authority,
thank you. And
they're looking
we're going
at housing.
to go ahead and move on to State Representative Molly Donohue next. Thank you.
Thanks. People have all mentioned the Access Center right here in Cedar Rapids, and we really have to commend Ben Rogers for all of his passion in the homelessness and mental health, because he's doing great things here in Linn County, but we don't have that statewide, and we don't have that statewide because the funding is not there. We have a lot of talk and a lot of talk. That's about it. The funding has not been there. So we're looking at regressive taxing or taxes to fund mental health, which is not going to benefit our people here. We have, you asked about the correlation. I can tell you as a teacher who works with behaviorally disordered, that there is definitely a correlation with the mental health, with the homelessness, with crimes. They all go together. So if we could get them stable, in a stable situation where they can get the help that they need, they get the education they need, get what all their needs met, and jobs, then they're going to be a lot better off, and we'll have fewer people utilizing or being forced into the judicial system for mental health issues versus actual major crimes. They all are correlated, and I will tell you real quick while I've got a couple seconds left. The only bill I can see that is out there right now is to try to get more healthcare psychologists into the pipeline, because we don't have enough people here. So that is another issue. Many people moved away when we shut down some of our facilities, and people realized that this was not something that was going to be available to them for jobs, so they moved on.
Thank you, State Representative Donohue. Now we'll go on with State Senator Rob Hogue.
Thank you. just to pick up where Representative Donohue finished there, the workforce issue is really important. And, you know, there is pending legislation to try to address direct care workers. And that's also an issue that could be taken care of through the Health and Human Service budget. And we need to support our workforce, right? We've got to have workers who can take care of this. The Foundation 2 runs a mobile crisis unit here in Linn County. People should be familiar with that. The correlation, there is a correlation between, you know, there's a disproportionate percentage of our population in our prisons that have mental health conditions, but there's an even bigger correlation with victims of crime. People who have mental health conditions are frequently the victims of crime. And the final thing I want to just point out is it's a question of priorities. What does Governor Reynolds want to do this year? $1 billion tax cut primarily for the wealthiest, $300 million for corporations. And yet they took away local funding of mental health and say the state's going to do it. That tax cut is a big problem. I'll leave it there at that in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead on to our third question here. And the first speaker that we'll have on this issue is State Representative Tracy Ellert. The question reads, there is a bill introduced that would double capacity regulations for childcare centers. How are you reacting to this idea? I will post it in the chat as well.
Great. I'm glad I got this question. This one I can answer. So it doesn't double the capacity. So I want to make sure that we're clear on that. The bill that passed through increases and I'm reading double capacity regulations. I'm assuming they're talking about the ratio, the teacher-child ratio. It didn't double. It increased for ages 2 and ages 3. There is an amendment that lowered for ages 2 a little bit. But right now we have a shortage of childcare workforce. We're already overworking them. They don't want this. Many parents are speaking up saying they don't want to put their children in classrooms that have less staff, but more children. So I don't think anybody actually reached out and talked to the workforce and the families. They just think, you know, if we let you have more kids, then the center, so the person that owns the center, can make more income. Does that income actually get passed on to their workers? Probably not, because everything is raised in costs like groceries, cleaning supplies, utilities. So that difference that they make up, if they do choose to take these extra children, is probably going to go to cover those costs, not actually increase the wage for their workers. So when my friends across the aisle say, well, this is just an option, this is a choice, it's not a choice for those teachers that are working in those classrooms.
And State Representative Kirsten Marquardt has decided that she'll give you your time, but we're going to go back in order. So following State Representative Eric Charity, you will have 90 more seconds. So next we have State Representative Charlie Mcclintock. Thank you.
Yeah, this is one of those issues that you have to kind of weigh out the benefit to the necessity of it as well. So if they don't have putting more kids in there, like Tracy said, is the benefit going to outweigh the issue of doing it? But if you step back and say, look, we don't have the staff, we don't have the facilities where we don't have the people to be able to do this with the right amount of people with the right amount of facilities to have the kids in there. At some point you have to say, well, then we'll increase the amount that's available. It's better than not having any facilities at all. So I think you have to balance it out. One of the ways, again, it may not be the most popular answer, but one of the ways to do that is by giving some choice to say, look, if you want to be able to put your child there, you can. If you feel that it's not a good answer, then don't. But it's a tough one. I'll be watching that bill. We'll see how it comes out in the end, but it can be a tough one. So I don't have a huge issue with the fact that there is a choice there to get to let the parents make a decision there. So thank you.
Okay, and timers, just an update. The next 180 seconds will be ceded to State Representative Tracy Ellert per State Representative Liz Bennett and State Senator Todd Taylor. Thank you.
So we're back to me, just to clarify. Yeah, okay. So I'll try not to repeat anything I repeated before. Another issue that I didn't get to is safety also. More kids, that's always a safety issue, more kids, less adults. We have to keep in mind that we have that bill that might possibly go through that allows the 16 and 17-year-olds to be alone in the classroom. So you may now also have non-qualified staff, brand new to the field, that are alone with these extra children. Hopefully not, if the bill continues to stay in the form that we got it amended, because we tried to have those younger age groups taken out if they are alone. This isn't really a choice for the parents, because yeah, they can choose to take their kids out of that program if the program increases the ratio, but where are they going to take their kids? There's no openings anywhere. So I don't really consider that the parents have a choice. But we are going to be offering an amendment that says that the parents have to sign off on this if their kids are currently in a classroom and the program wants to increase. And we also are going to offer an amendment that says that the staff has to agree to it as well, since again, this is going to be a choice for the person that owns the child care center, not a choice for anybody else. So I'm not anticipating that those amendments will get taken up, but they will be talking points to show that staff and parents and children who, you don't know who you have in these classrooms at those ages. Do we have special needs kids? Do we have kids that just, maybe have some behavior problems and require a little bit more time? It's not always a classroom full of typically developing children, and you can say, oh yeah, just add a few more, it'll be fine. So a lot of things to consider, and just because other states did increase theirs doesn't mean that it's working for them either. So I don't like that response that we keep getting is other states are doing this, other states are doing this. Well, yesterday on the news, Florida, who does this, just had a little girl that was locked inside the child care, and her mom came to get her and she was standing at the door all by herself. So that's my final comments.
All right, thank you. So next in order for this question will be State Representative Eric Jardy.
Thank you very much. I think this is an extremely important issue. My wife is an early childhood education teacher. We have 3 daughters, and they all went through, daycare, early childhood education, and then ultimately school. There was a study that I did some work on in my graduate program. It was the inequality at the starting gate, background differences in achievement as children begin school. And the greatest impact on student achievement when kids enter school is the program that they have in their early childhood education. And the educator is the #1 indicator of achievement, but also class size is a close second. And I want to push back just a little bit on the idea that, well, parents should have the choice if they want to put their child in, and Representative Eller did a really nice job saying this too, but it's not just the parent that chooses to put their kid in, it's the parents whose kids are already there that really need to have a focus on as well. I don't maybe necessarily want my children to,
30 seconds.
If we have 10 kids in a classroom, I don't necessarily want my kids to be in a classroom with 12 additional kids. Even if that parent says that's okay, it may not be okay with me. So we need to really focus on enhancing early childhood education in our
15
state.
seconds. Thank you. State Representative Molly Donohue.
Thank you. Our expert in childcare spoke a lot about all this, Miss Representative Ellert. But I will tell you, as an educator myself, I have the older kids, but we know the impact of what happens in those younger years for our children as they go through the school system. And to pile on more kids into a program just because there aren't any other programs is not the right thing to do. We need more workers. We need to treat those workers well so that they can afford to be in that position and help out. We need to make sure that the kids are getting all the skills and the things that they need. So when they do enter school, they can be successful. And that is our number one thing. We need to make sure our children are taken care of from the very beginning. We cannot wait until they're in kindergarten to start off their schooling if they are kids who don't have an environment that parents can help them in those early years for those early learning skills. And we know that we do have kids like that, and it's not the parents' fault. They have to work 2 and 3 jobs. This is an overall issue in our state and across this nation. So it is very important that we start these kids off right.
First of all, it is a real treat to work with somebody who knows the issue as well as Representative Ellert knows this issue, and not just knows it as a legislator, but a practitioner. And so I want to thank her for that. I do a couple other observations to add. Number one, if the state would do more with preschool, that would deal with some of this issue, because then the child care centers could focus on the child care centers. But since Democrats were in charge of the state in 2010, there's been no momentum on preschool. And in fact, there are still about 40% of the districts in the state that don't offer preschool. And so all the pressure goes on to the child care. Second, we should increase reimbursement significantly. We've got $1 billion surplus. Instead of giving it away to the corporations and the wealthiest Iowans, we should increase childcare reimbursements. We also need to go back to the day the Reynolds administration changed this. We used to have incentives for quality programs, and they started to do away with some of these. And finally, this is the larger workforce crisis, the Reynolds workforce crisis. We have an aging population and policies that are not attracting and retaining workers in Iowa. So the people who might have been providing these services are leaving our state, and we've got to fix that. Thank you.
Am I next?
That's correct.
Oh, thank you. So there is a childcare crisis across the state, particularly in rural areas, but we also have it in the urban areas. And we have to choose how we're going to address that. In the legislature, we could have, as Senator Hogue said, vastly improve the reimbursement rates. We could do things to help providers. We could do incentives that help businesses provide childcare for their own employees. There are lots of approaches we could take, and we've tried. Representative Eller has had several bills over the last 2 years that would do that. But instead, what we've done is raise the number of kids that are possible to be in these locations, and that, of course, has safety issues and learning issues, all kinds of issues. So instead of addressing it head on with what we need to do, we've sort of skirted the issue, and I think that's been the wrong approach. We need to change that, and before this session is over, provide incentives and better reimbursements.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our fourth question. The first speaker will be State Representative Charlie Mcclintock. The question reads as follows. Has consideration been given to the effect this would have on already exhausted childcare staff and to the emotions of the children when their needs cannot be met? And I will post this in the chat.
Well, the short answer is yes. I think everything gets taken under consideration when these bills are discussed and the potential impact. I don't think anyone tries to intentionally put a bill out there that they don't take things under consideration. And the very nature of the process in which these bills go through subcommittee and committee, and then go through our caucus process and go through debate. I think that the process itself in the legislature takes much of that under consideration, and the public comment portion, even through our subcommittees, where everyone has an opportunity to come up and discuss the best practices and give their give their information to the legislature. So again, the short answer is yes, that does get taken under consideration. But anytime there's any issues that come up throughout this process, for the purpose of the viewers out there, make sure you're always contacting your legislatures, your senators, your House reps, and giving your opinion on this. So I do believe that people have made their opinions known on this. I have been contacted on this particular issue, although it's been in more of an email and more of a broader spectrum. I know I'm running out of time here, but I just want to make sure that I utilize my time to make sure that the folks out there contact their legislatures or their legislators to be able to address these issues. So thank you.
Thank you. And State Representative Liz Bennett yields her time to State Representative Tracy Ellert.
So I think the consideration on this one went to the childcare owners. They considered this a bill to help those owners increase income. I do not believe that the consideration went to the actual early ed workforce, because I have not heard from one yet that wants this to go through. There are many that said they'll quit if this goes through, our 2- and 3-year-old teachers. They said they cannot take on another student, especially right now when students' mental health needs are so much more dire than they've been ever in the past. So I think about our program here in Linn County, Collins Aerospace Academy, our largest one in the county, one of the largest in the state. When Miranda, the director, lost 16 staff members in a 6-week time period, 15 of them completely leaving the profession because they're overworked, underpaid, and not appreciated with bills like this. So again, I think the consideration went to the business owners, not the early ed workforce.
Thank you. And State Senator Todd Taylor has decided to proceed with State Representative Eric Jarrety next.
Yep, and this will be pretty short. I think that, you know, it may have been considered, but consideration hasn't been given enough. And I think there are a lot of unintended consequences to different pieces of legislation that we have. And it's entirely accurate to say that we need to focus more on the workers and retention in Iowa and what we can do to keep people in these positions that are frankly very difficult jobs.
Thank you. And next is State Representative Kirsten Marquardt. State Representative, you are on mute.
The frustrating thing about this topic is that we've had each year, there's a new study, there's a new committee that puts forth their recommendations. And it's always at the top of the list that we need to treat the early education workforce with respect. And we also, not only with training, professionalism involved, but then also they need to be paid more. And that is just, it's like it's ignored every single time. And this is one of the most critical sectors in our workforce for our economy, for our children's education, for our investment in them. But we lost 60,000 to 70,000 people from COVID in our workforce. We need them to jump back in, but they need to be able to have childcare available for them to be able to jump back into the workforce. And, you know, we're going to keep continuing to lose people because they're getting paid $5 less than you can get working at McDonald's down the street. So we really need to have an adjustment, a readjustment of our priorities if we really want to tackle this problem. You know, the bills I see where they're going to pack more kids in, or they're going to let 16 or 17-year-olds be able to watch our children in some of these facilities. You know, those are difficult, troubling things for me.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to State Representative Molly Donohue.
And I think my clock's dinging in the background, sorry. Real quick, just like some others have already said, this is a workforce issue. And if we don't have the proper salaries or the wages for these people to go to work, if we don't have the childcare for these people to be able to send their children to that are safe and that they want to leave their children with, they can't go back to work. If their entire salary is paid in to childcare, they aren't going to go back to work. So there's a whole issue here of workforce, and it's no different than in education. If you're treating your people in childcare poorly, they're going to quit, as Representative Ellert said, just like you're seeing in education. The more kids you dump into a classroom or into the childcare system, into a room, those kids aren't getting what they need. The person trying to provide everything for these children can't give them everything, so they burn out quicker, and they're trying their best, but when you add more to their plate, it's not possible to do all the things that are necessary to get these kids prepared and ready to go on to the next steps.
Thank you. And State Senator Rob Hogue has asked that we move on to State Representative Art Stade next.
Thank you. I'll just reiterate what others have said. It's an important time in the life of kids. It's preschool time. There can be unintended consequences if they don't get their needs met. We put our children, our most valuable resource, our children, in the hands of these providers. We want to make sure that the individuals there are well trained and that they have a proper number of kids to look after. And it never should be increased to where there's any kind of danger or issue with the welfare of kids. So this is something that needs to be addressed for economic reasons and just for personal reasons and for the safety of our kids. And to just increase the numbers and burn out the providers and these care workers, this is just the wrong approach. We need to once again look at how we can help with reimbursement initiatives and make sure that child care staff are available and accessible throughout the state.
Thank you. And now we're back to State Representative Tracy Ellert for her turn.
So I don't think there's much more to add. Everyone did a great job answering. We talk about we need affordable and accessible childcare all the time, but the quality piece is often forgot about. It's not only got to be affordable and accessible for families, it has to be a quality program. We don't do that when we increase ratios.
Thank you. So I'm going to post the question in the chat, and then I'll read it as follows. The fifth question today, and we will start with State Representative Liz Bennett. The question is as follows. The governor has proposed a flat tax. This will be a tax that has a heavier impact on low and middle wage earners as compared to other levels. How can this be defended? Republicans have proposed doing away with Iowa state income taxes. How will this not have an impact of funds for local needs as well as state level funds such as law enforcement, state parks, property taxes, etc.? And State Representative Liz Bennett, we'll start with you.
All right, thank you very much. Put very simply, I oppose this tax plan. I voted against it. I think that this is a tax plan that is going to take more money out of the pockets of people who really feel that money missing from them on a day-to-day basis. And it's going to funnel more money into the hands of people who already have so much. Democrats believe that we don't need new tax giveaways to corporations. We don't need new tax giveaways to millionaires or special interests. We could do things to make a fair tax plan, like lowering the rates on people who are out there working so hard. The essential workers who have worked so hard to keep us afloat during the pandemic. We could expand the child independent tax care credit. We could remove the cliff effect for childcare. We could expand the early income tax credit. One of our members proposed a tax credit for volunteer firefighters, the people who are out there working really hard to make our communities function. we could do a lot better. We could use our $300 million surplus to fund our schools. We could work on our mental health system. There's so many things that we could do to make Iowa an excellent place that people want to live in the future. And this regressive tax plan that is going to punish and hurt people who really need that money is not going to do that. So I oppose this tax plan completely.
So this is the biggest issue of the day of anything we want to talk about, because anything we want to do to try to advance the state usually costs money. And this is going to take a ton of money off the table, put it that way. All right, but let me qualify that some more. Because of the workforce crisis that we have, Governor Reynolds' workforce crisis, we have been starving departments of the needs that they have for staff, for salaries, for equipment, for counseling, et cetera, for increasing staff. And because we have starved these departments, we have money left over. Because of a gigantic amount of federal infusion because of the pandemic, we have a lot of money left over. If you ask generally anybody, you want us to lower your taxes? Generally, they'll say, yeah. But then if you ask them, do we want to have good child care? Do you want to have good health care? Do you want to have mental health? Do you want to have safe prisons, safe streets, staff? Yeah, they want that too. Well, that costs money. So this flat tax, the one thing I can say that's good about it is it's simple. But that's not really all that good, just because it's simple, because it's a tax shift. And trust me, the bill that we're looking at has tax increases, sales tax increases. So the working class folks who work and buy things are going to be shouldered with a much larger burden of the taxes. And corporations who they'll take the tax cut, but they're not even asking for it. So we have a huge problem here, and there's a bunch of issues that go on out there, and those are bright, shiny objects to take us off of this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. And State Representative Eric Jarrety on the phone, or next.
Thank you. I think it's critically important to understand that when this question was posed and the Republicans are saying they refer to it as a 4% flat tax. This is not a 4% flat tax. Traditionally, a flat tax is a tax that's across the all economic spectrum, but without the credits, the deductions, and the refunds. This bill that we have seen in the House, that passed through the House, is a 4% tax rate, ultimately by 2028 for everybody, but it still has all the built-in deductions, credits, and refunds that most of the wealthy folks can take advantage of, so will ultimately reduce their tax liability. This is a $1.6 billion fiscal impact on the state of Iowa by 2028. We all know that Iowans expect essential services to be provided to them by the state, and that's education, that's recreation areas, that's clean waters and rivers, that's economic workforce development, that's public safety. Things will have to cut. I'm afraid that we will not be solvent in 10
seconds.
years with a tax plan like this. We have to focus on ensuring that folks who need the tax cuts will get the tax cuts, and that's the hardworking Iowans who find themselves in the lower middle class. We cannot. We tried to flip it to make sure that the lowest tax wage earners would get it first, but that did not work.
Thank you. And next is State Representative Kirsten Marquardt.
Hello. I really think that, everyone in general, as sort of what Senator Todd Taylor said, would love to have a tax break. The tax break, though, that the governor and Republicans have proposed, just to put it bluntly, it was a money grab for millionaires and really big corporations. It was not fair and reasonable. And that's really the bar that I hold policy up to. What's fair for everyday Iowans? And this was not it. So, I know that we offered plans. The Democrats in the House offered some ideas and plans on how to make a tax policy that's fair and reasonable for all Iowans. And that was rejected, unfortunately. We can continue to work to be the voice for working men and women across the state of Iowa. But This tax bill was a money grab for millionaires and big corporations. And it really jeopardizes if we're going to be able to pay our bills, if the state of Iowa is going to be able to pay our bills in the future. And, you know, that's not the kind of instability that Iowans want. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in here. I think it's my turn. I just met with my my city council and mayor over in Marion yesterday. And to quote my mayor, he said, "If you aren't growing, you're dying." So this tax break is going to jeopardize all of our towns as well, because they don't know what kind of revenue they're going to be having to continue with the work that they're doing to grow their economic their economy and their workforce, making sure that, you know, the trails that people want, recreation is available, and continue the great work that they've been doing. Marion survived the pandemic really well. They did great, but this is something that they are very concerned about, because they did have to do, you know, some creative thinking to get the things done that they did during the pandemic. But without this revenue coming in, there will be issues. As others have stated, this was a huge tax grab, and I just want to be right out there and say that this is helping very few people who need help. They broke down the dollars and cents, and we're talking cents. So some of those lowest tax bracket people are going to get $12 and a few odd cents for the entire year. That is their refund. That isn't helping anyone. We need to do better by the people who need this money, and we did the exact opposite. So it is a power grab, and it is pandering to some of the extremists and the donors. That's all I can see.
No, I'm going to just jump in here. I think it's my turn and say, I agree with what has been said, but I want to make a point. It's actually not even a good tax cut for the wealthy. They may get a lot more money, but what's the number one problem facing our state right now? It's a lack of workforce and a stagnant population. And you can be as rich as you want to be, but when you go to the hospital, you want somebody there who's going to take care of you. You want your grandkids to be able to have a child care provider or a teacher or an educator at the school, right? And you know, this is not a way to bring people together and bring us up. It's a way to give the wealthiest people a lot of money. And by the way, the corporate tax cut, a lot of that money will flow out of state for the corporation, right? Because not every corporation is domiciled in Iowa. This money will be tax break for out-of-state corporations as well. So, you know, this is the wrong direction. We need to invest in people. We need to raise everybody up. We need to build the middle class, and have ladders of opportunities for people. And this is badly the wrong direction at a time when we desperately need a different direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Timer, please recognize that State Representative Tracy Ellert has ceded her time to State Representative Art Stade, who will have 180 seconds to respond.
Thank you, Tracy. I just wanted to say that this is taken the wrong direction for the wrong group. Millionaires will benefit much more. There'll be much more burden on the middle class. And this is a time when we are scraping for every penny for education. We couldn't get 5%. We ended up with a 2.5%. That's just unbelievable that we couldn't fund education when we have billions of dollars in the coffers right now and are planning on this kind of a tax cut of more than $1 billion. But everything seems to be in a crisis. We talked about the workforce shortages, the child care issues, the mental health that's not funded, the housing, homelessness, education, even our quality of our water quality in the state. We have all these things that are unaddressed, underfunded, and then we decide to give away $1.2 billion. We could use that money wisely and not have an irresponsible tax credit that's skewed to the rich. It could be just be so different if we had a different leadership in this legislature. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And State Representative Charlie Mcclintock, you're next.
Thank you. Well, as I think the only Republican here, I did vote for the tax bill when it came up as it was put out there, meaning I didn't support the amendments. So this is one of those things where it was a relatively easy vote for me because I voted my district. They wanted to see it go through, and I didn't think it was all that bad. We had a surplus of money. We went into this with the governor's agenda. We looked at it, and I didn't think it was bad. It didn't give her exactly everything she asked for, but I give it most of it. It was a tax cut and give back to the people. You can say, well, it should have done this or it should have done that, but we didn't get a surplus like we did without being somewhat fiscally responsible. I listened to and you can say, well, over the years, it could be detrimental to us, but if you don't have the revenues, you can't do the cuts. I listened to the debate on the floor, and it kind of went back and forth. I think it was Representative Hall that said, well, this surplus came about because of the federal money that came down, and the citizens put that back into the economy, and that's why it was so good. Okay, fair enough, but the governor's the one that kept open Iowa and the economy. So I just think you should give credit where credit is due, and my colleagues, I respect their opinions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will proceed with the next question. This is our 6th question. Timers, if you know if this is our last question or not, please let me know. I've posted it in the chat. The 6th question reads as follows. Workforce issues are rampant across the U.S. How is turning Iowa into a state that promotes discrimination, supports the undermining of educational professionals, and encourages bullies in making threats of litigation and violence going to make Iowa attractive for workforce retention and relocation? The first person to answer this question will be State Senator Todd Taylor.
Thank you, Ashley. Well, I mean, I totally get the tenor and the tone of the questioner, and kind of the short answer is, the things that we're doing aren't going to help us make Iowa a great place to live, work, raise a family, and retire. That's not my phrase. I took it from Tom Vilsack, the first Democratic governor in 40 years, and he brought us back from the brink of a lot of bad spending policies, et cetera. So what I've seen over the years is if we invest in Iowa and things like early childhood education, preschool education, and include a reasonable growth rate, then we will attract corporations that want to come here and stay here and hire people, and then they have good wages, and then we can pay for our parks and rivers and streams and have clean water. So I mean, there's a continuum that if you want government to work, you can make it work, and it costs money. But we also have these policies, have to have policies in place that make it attractive and keep people in Iowa, so that when we invest in good jobs and education, we will keep people here, and then they want to raise their grandkids here. So they will make Iowa a great place to live, work, raise a family, and retire. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next person to answer is State Representative Eric Charity.
Thank you very much. And I think the real simple answer is that it won't. We need to make sure that Iowa is an inclusive place that invests in its people, that invests in its communities. And I will do everything I can in the state legislature to ensure that we do that, to ensure that we have people that want to move to our state, and make sure that we are not turning into a state that is not inclusive and turning folks away.
Thank you. And now we move on to State Representative Kirsten Marquardt.
Hello. This question is interesting. It always makes me worried when we have the beginning of session and there's a ton of bills that come through that people request, and they are bills that end up hurting people or doing this bullying or doing this discrimination. And treating our teachers poorly. And what these bills do is they send a message out to not only people in our state, but also people we're trying to bring here to our state. And that's not the look we want to give, because that's not a true representation of everyday Iowans and in their lives. And we have an absolute workforce problem. We need to be working collaboratively, thinking big and bold ideas, thinking outside the box as well. And every time I see one of these bills that come through that just does not represent everyday Iowans, ones that bully, ones that discriminate, ones that attack Iowa workers, I sincerely worry about what we look like to the rest of the nation. Some of the national news we get when some of these, bills come up, just do not do well for us and the long history we've had of Iowa doing the right thing for people. And so, I want everybody to come back home who live far away. I want people to stay here. That's the way that we have good economic development. That's why we have workforce development. And these things work in the
Thank
complete
you.
opposite
Our
of
next
that.
speaker
Thank you.
is State Representative Molly Donohue.
A lot of things have been said, and all of my colleagues are correct on this when it comes to the workforce. I said on the floor when we were talking about just the education funding, if our capital was a business, we would be failures, because when your business is having a hard time, you don't attack the workers. They make sure they increase the incentives and the things that workers need to get them to come work for them. When a business is losing workers to another business, they increase wages and benefits to improve the work and improve the working environment, not make it worse or attack them. When there is more work to be done than they have workers, they go out and try to find more workers, not pile more on to the workers that they have and expect them to still get it taken care of in the same quality that they expect. And when workers need resources and materials, they don't send them out to buy their own. They make sure they have them. So we are, our entire workforce issue in this state is in a direct result of what kind of legislation has been going through the House. And just in my 4 years there, it has been detrimental to most workers. It has not been Iowa nice. And we need to make some changes if we want to bring people into the state to work. And that means corporations. We need businesses to want to come here because they need to have workers, and they aren't going to come here when there aren't any workers. So it affects everything from the economy to our childcare, to the people in the classroom, to the people working in the businesses. It all matters.
I agree with what's been said, and trying to think about how to make this a little more tangible in terms of the legislation. Obviously, in the Senate President, Republican Senate President, teachers have a sinister agenda and wants to jail teachers. That doesn't help. The inadequate investment in education, last year's cut to preschool programs, that doesn't help us. Failure to pass a racial profiling bill, which once again, the majority party has failed to advance. While last year, they attacked efforts to promote diversity and in education, and attacking the 1619 Project, which is a book right here I've got on my table that I've been starting to work through. I mean, we have to have a welcoming, loving state that people want to live in. The quality of life issues, we have to have that if we're going to turn around the current course where you have 70 counties losing population and not having enough workers anywhere in the state. We've got to compete to make Iowa the place that people want to live. Thank you.
I agree with Senator Hogue completely. I think that we have a reputation here, and the reputation is created by the goals and policies that we work on in the legislature, and they're heard nationally. And when we attack teachers, when we discriminate, we have policies that would bully transgender girls. When we do those things, it's heard all throughout the country. And businesses that might want to otherwise bring their employees here, they have second thoughts about that, whether or not we're Iowa nice or not. So it's what we do that leaves an impression and creates our reputation. And I think we need to change that with making sure that many of these bills that are discriminatory, that are attacking our teachers and so on, should be dead soon.
Okay, next to respond is State Representative Tracy Ellert.
Thank you. So I sat in on a subcommittee the other day, and one of the comments made was that we continue to search for solutions to problems that we don't even have. And that could not be more true, regardless of how you felt about what was going on in that subcommittee or many of these other bills. We're wasting valuable time working on things that 1, maybe 3, maybe 5 people complain about and don't do anything for the overall quality of our state, don't do anything for the overall quality of, our workforce or any of these other important issues that we've talked about today. So we really need to focus on our real issues, or nobody is going to want to come here or stay here.
Thank you. State Representative Charlie Mcclintock.
I've read that question like 5 times. I guess the answer to the question is it won't, but I guess I disagree with the question. I don't think any of us are doing anything in that question. Just reading through it, I don't know. That's a bad question. No one's doing any of that, in my opinion. I'm certainly not. I would never support any of those things in there. I guess I disagree with the question on its face, but the short answer to it is no, it wouldn't. None of those things would be good for the state or any of the people in it. So thank you.
With respect to my colleague, I really have to identify that when we have bills being filed by the majority policy or by the majority party to remove sexual orientation and gender identity from our state civil rights code, and we have people who don't think that there's discrimination going on in the state, that's the problem. I'm going to speak as one of the few young professionals in the Iowa legislature working in the private sector. I've worked in the tech sector for over 10 years now in Iowa. When these kinds of headlines hit national news, it is a problem for our workforce. I'm a young professional who decided to stay to work in the state, to work in an innovative industry, in a place where I felt that our state was going in a progressive direction. I felt that I could have every opportunity here as an LGBTQ person. And I have been an advocate for Iowa. I have not put up with any smack talk about Iowa, on these grounds. But it's really a problem when my friends from other states, people who we're talking to about maybe coming here to work, are saying things about throwing teachers in jail, about taking LGBTQ people out of the civil rights code of the state, out of discriminating in youth sports. It's a big problem. It's a bad look for Iowa, and it's really harmful to our children who are growing up here in Iowa. So it's very disappointing. I will be fighting against this continually in the state house. And I really hope that my friends across the aisle will have
Thank you.
some understanding.
So I appreciate everybody's time today. Certainly, I want to share the regrets that we received from State Senator Liz Mathis, who was not able to join us today. A reminder to everybody watching that all area legislators were invited. The League thanks our legislators for their participation in this morning's forum and Pro Video for their technology services. We thank the community for sending questions and viewing the forum. The League reminds you that your vote is your voice in government. We urge you to make your voice heard. And with that, we're going to head into closing comments with the first person to speak as State Representative Eric Charity. Thank you.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters. And I guess my closing message is make sure you get involved. Make sure your voice is heard. Make sure you vote. If you would like to get a hold of me, send me an email. It's eric.jardy@legis.iowa.gov. I look forward to hearing from everybody. It's critically important at this time that everybody is involved. Thank you.
And next for closing comments is State Representative Kirsten Marquardt.
I too would like to thank the league and all the volunteers for the decades of work you've done to make sure that these forums can happen, that we have a platform to have good discussion. And, you know, I think the thing I want to leave people with is contact your legislators. We are, you know, good people and want to make sure that we're representing our districts and state to the best of our abilities. I'm excited when we have questions about workforce development. That's a good sign that folks are really understanding what that means and how critical that is to our economy. And, you know, please, I'm available, call or email anytime, and I'm here to serve you. So thank you very much.
Thank you to League of Women Voters for holding this, and to all my colleagues for being here today to discuss, and I learn from each of you every day as well. I am just, again, like some of you have already said, I'm concerned with what's happening at the State House, and I want people to get involved. Call us, call your legislators. If we aren't your legislator, call them, let them know how you're feeling on these topics. We have a lot of things going through the House in the next week. I have a stack of the bills that we're going to supposedly be doing. There's a lot of them. And we need to hear from you so that we are doing the best we can for our communities. We have some bills that I think are unnecessary. They are not, they're hurtful to Iowa. And I want to see better legislation going through that help the majority of Iowans rather than the small group that are putting bills forward that hurt a minority group of people or marginalized group of people, or our low socioeconomic groups, homeless, mental health. There's so many things that we need to work on, and we should be working on. And real quick, that fiscal responsibility was at a cost of not paying for the things that we needed in this state. So that was not really real responsible. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the discussion today and the opportunity, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for organizing this. One of the things, just to finish and convey, is we do have things that are working in the state, and it's very difficult for some of us to listen to the, you know, the rhetoric about sinister agendas from the news media and the teachers, and have to deal with that. At the same time, we want to champion those things that are working. You know, we know clean energy works, solar power works. Unfortunately, we have legislation that would take away the rights of farmers to do solar power on their land, Senate File 2321. We know that conservation and outdoor recreation work, and unfortunately, we have Senate File 2312 that would prohibit landowners the freedom of selling their property for public conservation use at market rate. We know that education and workforce works. We think about the great things that our schools have done despite a pandemic, and our community colleges and our colleges are doing. And we need to invest in those things. Together, we can build a better Iowa. We just have to say no to the hostile rhetoric and work together. I think we can do that. So thanks for participating today.
I want to thank, first of all, the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity to reach the public and for the public to hear our views. And I hope that they continue to do that. I also want to thank all of my colleagues on here for both parties, because I'm aware, fully aware, and as you heard today, they're interested in improving the quality of life for Iowans, and I respect all of them. And thirdly, I want to thank everybody that's here viewing us. Thank you for participating in your government and having the will to find out what's going on, and hope that you'll continue to contact us with your issues, concerns, and ideas.
Thank you. State Representative Eller.
Thank you again, League of Women Voters, for hosting these important forums. And thank you to everyone that listens. And particularly whoever sent in the childcare questions. I really appreciate when those come in. So keep writing us about that. And big week of debate in the House this week. So just a reminder that you can go to the legislative website and just click a link and see us in action and listen to what's going on. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yes, thank you to Ashley and the League of Women Voters. I always appreciate being invited. And I would say to the folks watching, the vast majority of what we pass in the Iowa House is unanimous. We do so many great things, and we pass mostly, like I say, unanimous, excellent legislation. Once in a while, we do have bills where there's opposing sides and opposing views and things like that, but that's what makes the world a better place and what makes Iowa a better place when we have opportunities to come into forums like this. And we may disagree on different things because of our own opinions or our constituents or whatever it may be, but unless we have forums like this or opportunities to talk and to have our views out and learn from one another and make things better, we'll never improve the process and the living in Iowa. So thank you so much again for hosting and having us all together. So that's it. Thank you.
I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters and thank everybody who's watching at home. Active participation in our democracy is not only our right, but it's our responsibility. So thank you all for everything that you're doing. I want to thank all of my friends and neighbors who I've heard from in the legislature, and the people out there who really do believe in the potential of Iowa as a state where everybody can get a fair shot, and where we truly value and welcome all people. That's what I'm working for in the legislature. And I know my colleagues are as well. So we'll keep up that work.
And
Well, I would
finally, we'll end with State Senator Todd Taylor.
Thank you. I want to echo the positive tone in my colleagues as we close and wrap up. There are plenty of pieces of good legislation that we work on. Some of them are minor and some of them are, more significant. But I think I don't want to leave the forum today without, again, messaging that with the Republican trifecta right now, we're seeing personalized bills. One senator has one problem and hears from one or two people, and then their bill gets talked about. And it makes national headlines when someone flips everybody off, and then it gets covered on CNN, and they think that's great. So the Senate president speaks from the floor and calls teachers sinister, and then again gets a CNN interview. So those are the kinds of realities of things that we're dealing with behind those closed doors up there, and with less, reporters in the Senate, for example. However, I'm saying, hey, I'd like a 4-year contract extension. I still want to do this job, right? Running for re-election. But the thing is, I think there's hope and opportunities that we have in the future that I want to be involved in, and I enjoy the support of the Republicans in my district, and I ask those Republicans to help hold other Republicans accountable, and let's get some new ideas out there. And next year, I think will be very different. Thank you.
Thank you again to all of our viewers for tuning in, to my colleagues with the League of Women Voters of Linn County, and to all of our legislators for their time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.